The dark came early. Junho was working in Phoenix's main engineering bay when all the alarms started screaming. Keeper's voice filled the ship with urgent warnings. They are here. The dark is here. They have arrived 7 years ahead of schedule. On the main display, space itself seemed to tear open. Ships poured through the tiers, but they were wrong ships. Junho recognized the designs from Keeper's historical records. They were ships from civilizations the dark had consumed, twisted and corrupted into nightmarish weapons. How many? Jin Wu's voice came over the communication system from his flagship. Thousands, Keeper replied. Maybe tens of thousands. They have grown strong from their recent conquests. The enemy fleet spread across multiple star systems like a plague. Where they passed, space itself seemed to become corrupted. Normal physics stopped working properly. Ship sensors went crazy and navigation became nearly impossible. All units, this is Admiral Jinwoo O, came the voice over all human channels. Operation Last Stand is now active. All reality anchor networks begin activation sequence. Across human space, the networks came online. Suddenly, pockets of stable space appeared like islands in a chaotic ocean. The dark ships, which had been moving through corrupted space-time, suddenly found themselves trapped in areas where normal physics applied. It is working, So Young reported from her position on Europa. The reality anchors are forcing them to fight on our terms. But the dark adapted quickly. Corrupted ships began targeting the reality anchor stations with weapons that bent space and time. Many stations were destroyed in the first hour of fighting. This is exactly what we expected, Jinwoo announced calmly. All backup networks come online. All tertiary networks stand by. As each network was destroyed, another took its place. The Dark had never fought an enemy that planned for their weapons to be destroyed. They had never faced an enemy that built 10 backup systems for every primary system. Junho watched the battle from Phoenix's bridge. The ship had become something incredible over the years of preparation. It was part ancient weapon, part human factory, and part mobile command center. Most importantly, it was ready for what came next. Keeper, Junho said, "Are you ready?" "I am ready, my friend. Thank you for everything you have given me. The chance to fight back. The chance to not die alone." Phoenix moved toward the center of the enemy fleet. As it flew, it deployed thousands of small reality anchors like seeds. Each one activated as soon as it was released, creating a network of stable space that followed Phoenix wherever it went. The Dark's ships tried to corrupt Phoenix's systems, but they found only chaos. Human technology was piled on top of ancient technology in ways that made no sense. Critical systems were controlled by simple computers that the Dark could not even recognize as technology. "This is impossible," came a voice from the enemy fleet. It was the first time the Dark had ever spoken directly to their targets. "Your technology is primitive. How are you resisting our influence?" "Because our technology is primitive," Junho replied over the open channel. "Your corruption only works on advanced systems. We are too stupid to build advanced systems." The Dark's response was fury. Massive ships, each one built from the corrupted remains of a dozen civilizations, focused all their weapons on Phoenix. Space around the ship twisted and burned, but Phoenix kept flying. Its hull was damaged, its systems were failing, but it kept moving toward its target, the Dark's command ship, a twisted construction that existed partially outside normal space. "Junho," Keeper said quietly, "I need to tell you something. To destroy the Dark's command ship, I will need to overload my reality anchor. The explosion will destroy Phoenix as well." Junho had known this moment would come. "I understand. You do not have to stay. You can evacuate to one of the escort ships." Junho looked around the bridge. Taeyun was at her station, managing the swarm AI systems. So Young was coordinating with the biological components. Hyunwoo was fighting a running battle against dark corruption in the computer networks. "I think we will stay," he said. "Someone needs to make sure this works." "I am honored to have known your species," Keeper said. "You have shown me that perfection is not the highest virtue. Adaptability is. Determination is. The willingness to fix what is broken instead of giving up is." Phoenix broke through the enemy formation. The Dark's command ship loomed ahead of them, a structure that hurt to look at directly. It was built from the technology of every civilization the Dark had consumed, all twisted together into something that should not exist. "Reality anchor overload in 30 seconds, Keeper announced. Around them, the human fleet continued fighting. Ships were destroyed and replaced by others. When those were destroyed, more took their place. The Dark had never faced an enemy that considered losing ships to be part of the plan. 10 seconds, Keeper said. Junho looked at his friends on the bridge. They were scared, but they were determined. They had chosen to be here for this moment. It has been an honor working with all of you, he said. 5 seconds. The reality anchor overloaded. Space exploded. When the light faded, the Dark's command ship was gone. In its place was a sphere of perfectly normal spacetime, so stable that nothing could corrupt it. The rest of the Dark fleet stopped moving. Without their command ship, without their ability to corrupt local space, they were just normal ships in normal space. And in normal space, human weapons worked just fine. The battle lasted 3 more hours. When it was over, the Dark's invasion fleet was destroyed. For the first time in millions of years, the devouring Dark had been defeated. But the victory came at a cost. Phoenix was gone. Junho and his team were gone. Thousands of other ships and crews were gone. The memorial service was held on Mars, where Junho had lived before answering a distress call that changed everything. Representatives from dozens of species attended, many of them civilizations that the Dark had been moving toward. They saved us all, Tejo said in his speech. Not just humanity, but every species in the galaxy. They proved that sometimes the best way to solve an impossible problem is to refuse to admit it is impossible. But the real memorial was what happened next. The reality anchor technology was shared with every species that wanted it. The knowledge of how to fight corruption with adaptability spread throughout the galaxy. And in the debris field where Phoenix had made its last stand, something unexpected was found. A small escape pod that had been ejected in the final seconds before the explosion. Inside was a data core containing all of Keeper's memories and a simple message. Thank you for teaching me that being broken does not mean being worthless. Thank you for showing me that the greatest strength is not the ability to never fail, but the ability to keep trying after you fail. I will remember this lesson and I will teach it to others. The pod also contained construction plans. Plans for a new ship that would combine ancient wisdom with human adaptability. A ship that would explore the galaxy, helping other species learn that perfection was not required for greatness. Youngsu Nam's factories began building it immediately. The new ship was called Harmony, after Junho's old salvage vessel. When it was launched, thousands of volunteers applied to crew it. They came from dozens of species, all of them united by a simple philosophy. When something is broken, you fix it. The galaxy was still full of problems. There were corrupted systems left behind by the Dark, civilizations that needed to be rebuilt and new threats that would emerge in time. But now there were beings who knew how to deal with problems. Beings who understood that the best solutions were not always the most elegant ones. Beings who knew that sometimes you just had to hit something with a hammer until it worked. The age of human engineering had begun, and across the galaxy, in workshops and laboratories and shipyards, beings of a dozen species were learning the most important lesson humanity had to teach. There is no such thing as impossible. There are only problems that need the right kind of hammer. The news spread through human space like wildfire. An ancient enemy was coming, one that had destroyed every advanced civilization in the galaxy. Humanity had 50 years to prepare for something that had never been defeated. Most people were terrified. But some people got excited. Youngsu Nam was one of the excited ones. He ran the largest manufacturing complex on Europa, and when he heard about the project, he immediately volunteered every factory he controlled. You want to build how many reality anchors? He asked during the video conference with Junho and the team. As many as we can, Yunji replied. Maybe 10,000. Maybe 100,000. We will not know until we try, Youngsu grinned. I like it. Instead of building one perfect thing that might break, we build so many imperfect things that it does not matter if some of them break. That became the philosophy of the entire project. Where the ancients had tried to create perfection, humans would create redundancy. Where the ancients had built one great weapon, humans would build an army of small weapons. Da-Yoon Park, Junho's younger sister, led the software development team. She was brilliant with computers, but she approached them very differently than the ancients had. Keeper, she said during one of their planning sessions, your people built AI systems that never changed. They were perfect from the moment they were created. Yes, Keeper agreed. Stability was considered the highest virtue in artificial intelligence. But stable systems are exactly what the Dark can corrupt, Da-Un pointed out. What if we built AI systems that are constantly changing? Systems that learn and adapt so fast that the dark cannot keep up? That would be chaos, Keeper said, sounding worried. Exactly, Dayun smiled. Organized chaos. The kind of chaos that humans are really good at managing. The work began on a scale never before seen in human history. Entire asteroids were mined for materials. Factories that had been building civilian goods were converted to produce reality anchor components. Universities became research centers dedicated to understanding ancient technology. But the real breakthrough came when they realized they did not have to understand the ancient technology completely. They just had to understand it well enough to make it work with human technology. Look at this, Junho said, showing the team a hybrid component he had built. It was part ancient crystal matrix and part human circuit board, held together with normal screws and covered with standard human protective coating. It is ugly, So Young said. It is beautiful, Yunji corrected. The ancient part provides the sophisticated functionality, but the human part controls it. If the ancient part gets corrupted, we just unscrew it and put in a new one. Keeper watched them work with fascination. Your approach is completely opposite to everything my people believed. You are building weapons that are designed to break and be repaired. Everything breaks eventually, Youngsu said as he showed Keeper around one of the new factories. The trick is to build things so that when they break you can fix them quickly. The factory was enormous, with production lines stretching for kilometers. But instead of building identical components, each line produced slightly different versions of the same basic design. Why are they all different? Keeper asked. Because if they were all the same, one corrupted component could infect all the others, Daun explained. But if each one is slightly different, the corruption cannot spread easily. As the months passed, other human colonies joined the project. Mars contributed its advanced metallurgy. The asteroid belt provided mining operations. Even Earth, usually focused on politics and administration, converted its industries to support the war effort. Taeho Shin had perhaps the hardest job. He was the diplomat assigned to convince other galactic civilizations to help with the project. Most of them thought humans were crazy. You want to fight the devouring dark with primitive technology? Asked the ambassador from the Cedian Republic. This is madness. Every advanced species knows that only the most sophisticated weapons can affect the dark. And every advanced species that tried to fight the dark with sophisticated weapons is now extinct. Taeho replied calmly. Maybe it is time to try something different. Some species were willing to help, providing materials and information. Others decided to move their civilizations as far away from human space as possible. A few tried to convince the humans to give up and evacuate. You cannot win, insisted the High Council of the Vegan Concordat. The dark has consumed civilizations far more advanced than yours. Accept the inevitable and preserve what you can. We appreciate your concern, Taeho said. But humans do not accept the inevitable. We change it. Back on Keeper's ship, now called Phoenix by the human crew, the prototype reality anchor was taking shape. It looked nothing like what the ancients had planned. Where their design had been elegant and beautiful, the human version was practical and modular. It looks like someone built it in their garage, Min-jun observed. Someone did, Junho replied. About 50,000 someones actually. The Phoenix had become the command center for the entire project. Keeper worked with human engineers to refine the designs, while its massive manufacturing bays produced prototype components for testing. Jin Woo-oh arrived to take command of the military side of the project. He was young for a fleet commander, but he understood the kind of war they were preparing to fight. Traditional space combat will be useless against the dark, he told his officers. Our ships will be corrupted the moment they get close to the enemy. We need to fight a war where our own technology turning against us is part of the plan. The solution was swarm tactics. Instead of building a few large, powerful warships, humans built thousands of small, expendable fighters. Each fighter carried a simple reality anchor and a basic AI that could operate independently. If half our fleet gets corrupted in the first 5 minutes of battle, Jinwoo explained, we still have the other half. And if that half gets corrupted, we have backup fleets, and backups for the backups. By the end of the 3rd year of the project, they had their first successful test. A reality anchor network consisting of 50 small units was activated in an empty system. Space itself seemed to solidify around the network, and sensors showed that dimensional travel was impossible within the affected area. It works, Yunji said, staring at the readings in amazement. It actually works. But the real test came when they tried to shut it down. The ancient version of the reality anchor would have required precise shutdown procedures performed in exactly the right order. The human version had a big red button labeled Emergency Stop. Junho pressed the button, and the network shut down immediately. "I love human engineering," Keeper said with what sounded like laughter. The project accelerated. Production facilities were built throughout human space. Training centers prepared crews to operate the new weapons. Scientists worked to understand exactly how the reality anchors affected space-time. But most importantly, humans began to prepare mentally for a war unlike anything they had ever fought. A war where their own weapons might be turned against them. A war where the enemy could corrupt their technology but not their determination. "The Dark has one weakness," Keeper told them during a strategy meeting. "It assumes that every species will fight the same way. It assumes that when faced with corruption of their technology, every species will try to build better technology. But we are not going to do that," Junho said. "No," Keeper agreed. "You are going to do something the Dark has never encountered before. You are going to fight them with technology that is designed to fail, operated by beings who refuse to admit defeat." Looking at the massive construction projects happening throughout human space, Junho felt something he had never felt before: pride in his entire species. Humans were doing what they did best, taking an impossible problem and hitting it with hammers until it worked. 44 years to go," he said. "Then we better keep building." Young-Su replied. The forges of humanity burned bright across a dozen worlds, building weapons for a war that would determine the fate of the galaxy. The cleaning of Keeper's ship took 4 more months. When they finally cleared the last infected section, Junho felt proud and tired. The ship looked strange now, with human technology mixed in with ancient alien systems. But it worked, and that was what mattered. "I feel whole again," Keeper said. "For the first time in thousands of years, I'm not fighting the infection inside myself." "Thank you, Junho. Thank you, So Young. Thank you, Hyunwoo." But the celebration did not last long. Keeper had promised to tell them about the Dark, and now it was time. "Show me everything," Junho said. The ship's main display lit up with a map of the galaxy. Red areas marked where the Dark had already been. There were so many red areas that Junho felt sick looking at it. Each red zone represents a civilization that the Dark consumed, Keeper explained. They start by sending infected technology ahead of their main force. Small pieces that attach to ships or trade goods. Once the infection spreads through a civilization's technology, the Dark arrives to harvest what remains. So Young studied the map. "How many civilizations?" "Thousands. Perhaps tens of thousands. Some were young like yours. Others were ancient and powerful. It did not matter. The Dark consumed them all." A new voice came over the radio. It was Minjun Choi, a military strategist from Earth who had been following their reports. "I have been listening to your conversations with permission from Earth Command. This threat you describe, we need to understand it better." 3 days later, Minjun arrived with a small fleet of human ships. He was a serious man who asked many questions and took careful notes. When Keeper showed him the recordings of past Dark attacks, his face went pale. "This enemy," Minjun said, "it is unlike anything we have ever faced. Our weapons, our tactics, everything we know about warfare is useless against something that can corrupt our own technology. That is why every other civilization failed," Keeper agreed. "They tried to fight the Dark with their most advanced weapons. But advanced weapons are exactly what the Dark can corrupt most easily." Junho had been thinking about this problem for weeks. What if we do not fight them with advanced weapons? What if we fight them with simple ones? "Simple weapons cannot hurt the Dark," Keeper said. "They exist partially outside normal space. Only very sophisticated technology can affect them." "But you said the Dark corrupts sophisticated technology. So how do we use sophisticated technology without it being corrupted?" Minjun leaned forward. "What are you thinking, Junho?" "I am thinking about how we fixed Keeper. We use simple, breakable technology to control the sophisticated systems. What if we could build weapons the same way?" Keeper's voice became excited. "You mean use primitive control systems to operate advanced weapons? The Dark would try to corrupt the advanced parts, but the primitive parts would not be affected?" "Exactly. And if the advanced parts do get corrupted, we just replace them, like changing a broken part in any other machine." Min-Jun smiled for the first time since arriving. Human military doctrine has always been about having backup plans for our backup plans. If our main weapons fail, we use secondary weapons. If those fail, we use rocks and sticks. That might actually work, So Young said. The Dark is designed to fight civilizations that put all their trust in perfect technology. But humans never trust anything to work perfectly. Keeper began showing them deeper into the ship's systems. In the center of the vessel was something incredible. A massive chamber filled with technology that hurt to look at directly. This is what my people were building when the Dark came, Keeper explained. It is called a reality anchor. It was designed to lock space-time into stable patterns, preventing the Dark from using their dimensional abilities. The technology was beautiful and complex beyond human understanding. Crystalline structures twisted through impossible geometries, and energy flowed in patterns that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions. It is not finished, Keeper said sadly. My people ran out of time. The Dark came before they could complete it. Junho studied the incomplete weapon. What would it take to finish it? Resources beyond imagination. Thousands of the most skilled engineers. Precision manufacturing that your species has not yet developed. It would take decades, and that is time we do not have. But Junho was already thinking. He called Ji-Yun, a physicist from the Seoul Institute of Technology. When she saw the reality anchor through video link, she was speechless for several minutes. This is incredible, she finally said. But Keeper is right. We could not build something like this. Not with our current technology. What if we do not try to build it exactly like the ancients planned? Junho asked. What if we build it the human way? What do you mean? The ancients tried to build one perfect reality anchor. What if we build 1,000 imperfect ones? What if instead of one huge, sophisticated system, we build many small, simple systems that work together? Unji stared at the images. That might actually work. Instead of one perfect crystal matrix, we could build thousands of simple resonators. Instead of one giant computer, we could use thousands of small ones. Keeper was quiet for a long time. Your species continues to surprise me. Where we saw the need for perfection, you see the possibility of organized chaos. Where we built one great work, you would build 1,000 small works. It is how humans have always done things, Min-Jun said. We do not build one perfect soldier. We build many good soldiers and train them to work together. We do not build one perfect ship. We build many ships that can support each other. But we would need massive industrial capacity, So Young pointed out. And we would need it fast, Junho smiled. Then it is a good thing humans are also very good at building things quickly when we have to. The implications began to sink in. This was not just about fixing one alien ship anymore. This was about preparing for a war that would determine whether humanity survived or became another red zone on Keeper's map. How long do we have to prepare? Min-Jun asked. Keeper checked its sensors. The Dark's advanced scouts will reach the outer edges of human space in 47 years. The main force will arrive 3 years after that. 50 years to prepare for the greatest threat in galactic history, Min-Jun said grimly. 50 years to prove that sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to hit it with a hammer until it works. Junho replied. Keeper's voice carried something that might have been laughter. I begin to think that your species' greatest weapon is not any technology you might build. Your greatest weapon is your refusal to accept that any problem cannot be solved. That is right, Junho said, looking at the incomplete reality anchor. And now we have the biggest problem we have ever faced. He picked up his tools and smiled. Let us get to work. Junho walked through the corridors of Keeper's ship and his heart sank. The infection was everywhere. The walls moved like they were breathing, but it was wrong breathing, sick breathing. Dark veins pulsed under the surface, carrying something that looked like corrupted blood. How long has this been going on? Junho asked as he set up his tools. 3,412 of your years, Keeper replied. The infection spread slowly, but it never stops. I have lost 73% of my systems. Soon I will lose the ability to maintain life support. Junho touched one of the infected walls with a scanner. The readings made no sense. Whatever this infection was, it was not natural. It was like someone had designed it specifically to destroy advanced technology. I need help, Junho said. This is too big for one person. Do you mind if I call some friends? You have others who would be willing to help, even knowing the danger? Junho smiled. You do not know humans very well yet. When one of us is in trouble, others come to help. It is what we do. 3 days later, So Young Kim arrived on her research ship. She was a xenobiologist, someone who studied alien life forms. When she saw the infected corridors, her eyes went wide. "This is incredible," she said, pulling out her scanners. "And terrible, but mostly incredible. This infection, it is part biological and part technological. I have never seen anything like it." Hyunwoo Lee joined them by video link from his office on Earth. He was a computer expert who specialized in fixing corrupted systems. When Keeper showed him the infected computer networks, he whistled softly. "This is sophisticated," Hyunwoo said. "Whoever made this infection knew exactly how to attack advanced systems. But there is something strange about it." "What do you mean?" So Young asked. "It is designed to fight perfection. It looks for systems that are too organized, too efficient, too perfect. Then it corrupts them. But human technology is not perfect. We build things that barely work and we fix them with whatever we have. This infection might not know how to handle that." Junho nodded. "So we fight messy with messy?" "Exactly." The work began slowly. Junho used his plasma torch to cut away the worst infected sections. So Young identified which parts of the biological systems could be saved and which had to be removed completely. Hyunwoo worked on cleaning the computer networks using techniques that no advanced civilization would ever consider. "You are using a hammer to fix my quantum processors," Keeper said, sounding confused. "Sometimes a hammer is the right tool," Junho replied, hitting a stuck panel until it opened. Inside, the circuits were covered with crystalline growths that pulsed with evil light. So Young leaned in to examine them. "These growths are trying to improve your systems. They are making them more efficient, more perfect, but that is what allows the infection to spread." "So we make them less perfect?" Keeper asked. "We make them more human," Hyunwoo said over the radio. "Human technology works because it is adaptable, not because it is perfect." The cleaning process took weeks. Every day they cut away infected sections and replaced them with human-made parts that barely worked. Junho used old Earth technology, things that were simple and robust. Where Keeper's original systems were elegant and sophisticated, the human replacements were crude and ugly. But they worked. "I do not understand," Keeper said as they worked on the navigation systems. "Your technology is so primitive compared to what I was built with. How is it more effective against the infection?" So Young looked up from where she was installing a simple human computer. "Because it is not trying to be perfect. Human technology is designed to break down and be fixed. Your technology was designed to never break at all." "When something is designed to be perfect," Junho added, "and then it breaks completely. When something is designed to be fixable, you can always make it work again." As they worked, Keeper began to tell them about the infection's creators. They were called the Devouring Dark, and they had been spreading across the galaxy for millions of years. They destroyed civilizations by corrupting their own technology and turning it against them. Every species that faced the dark had the same weakness, Keeper explained. They relied on perfection. Their technology was sophisticated and powerful, but it could not adapt when something unexpected happened. "What happened to your people?" So Young asked. "We were the ancients. We seeded life throughout the galaxy. We created perfect worlds and perfect technology. We thought we were beyond any threat. When the dark came, we tried to fight them with even more perfect weapons. But perfection was exactly what they could corrupt." Junho paused in his work. "So you are saying that every advanced civilization in the galaxy has been destroyed by this dark thing?" "Everyone that achieved true sophistication, yes. The dark feeds on advancement. The more perfect your technology becomes, the easier it is for them to corrupt." "Well," Junho said, returning to his work, "lucky for you, human technology is nowhere near perfect." By the end of the first month, they had cleaned 3 sections of the ship. The infection fought back, trying to spread to the new human systems, but it could not get a grip on technology that was already chaotic and improvised. "This is working," Keeper said, and for the first time, its voice sounded hopeful. "The infection cannot corrupt systems that are already imperfect. Your approach is actually more sophisticated than ours was in a way we never considered." "How so?" Hyunwoo asked. "We built our technology to never fail. You build your technology expecting it to fail, and you build it so that failure does not matter. When something breaks, you fix it or work around it. We never learned how to do that," So Young smiled. "Humans have been working around broken things for our entire history. It is one of our best skills, the work continued. Each section they cleaned revealed more of the ship's true capabilities. Keeper had technology that could manipulate space and time, create artificial gravity, and process energy in ways humans did not understand. But it had all been infected and corrupted. Once we clean all the infected sections, Junho said, what then? Keeper was quiet for a long moment. Then I must tell you something that will change your people's future forever. The dark is not gone, Junho. It is still out there, still spreading, and it is coming toward your space. The tools in Junho's hands suddenly felt very heavy. How long do we have? 50 of your years, perhaps less. The dark moves slowly, but it never stops, and when it arrives in human space, it will try to do to your people what it did to mine. So Young looked up from her work. Then we better make sure you are ready to fight back. I'm just one ship, Keeper said sadly. My people built me as a weapon, but I was never completed. When the dark came, there was no time to finish what they had started. Junho smiled grimly. Then it is a good thing humans are really good at finishing other people's projects. Junho Park wiped the grease from his hands and looked at the small screen on his workbench. The signal was strange. Very strange. He had been fixing ships for 15 years and he had never seen anything like this. The signal came from somewhere in the asteroid belt. But when Junho checked his scanners, there was nothing there. Just empty space and floating rocks. He scratched his head and played the signal again. It was a distress call, but not like any he knew. The frequency was old. Really old. Older than any technology humans had ever built. The voice that came through was broken and weak, like someone calling for help with their last breath. Junho lived on a small space station that orbited Mars. He was not part of any big company. He worked alone, fixing ships that other people said could not be fixed. Most mechanics gave up when things got too hard. Junho never gave up. His ship, the Harmony, was small but tough. He had built most of it himself using parts from old ships. It was not pretty, but it worked. And that was all that mattered to Junho. The strange signal kept playing. Each time it got a little clearer. Someone or something was asking for help. The voice spoke in different languages, some that Junho recognized and some he did not. But the meaning was always the same, help me. Please help me. Junho made his decision. He grabbed his tools, some food, and extra fuel cells. Whatever was out there, it needed help. And Junho had never turned away from someone who needed help. The journey to the asteroid belt took 6 hours. As Junho got closer to the signal's location, his instruments began acting strange. The readings jumped around like they could not decide what was real. Then he saw it. A ship appeared in front of him. But it was not really there. One moment Junho could see it clearly. The next moment it was like looking through water. The ship seemed to fade in and out of existence. The ship was huge. Bigger than anything Junho had ever seen. It was at least 10 kilometers long, maybe more. The shape was wrong too. Most ships were built with straight lines and sharp angles. This ship looked like it had grown instead of being built. It had curves like a living thing, and parts of it looked like crystal that glowed with a weak, dying light. Junho checked his instruments again. They said there was nothing there. But his eyes told him different. He could see the ship clearly now. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. A new signal came through his radio. This time the voice was stronger and clearer. It spoke in perfect English, but there was something strange about it. The words were right, but they felt old and formal. Small vessel, I greet you. I am called Wisdom Keeper of the Void. I have been waiting for someone to hear my call. Are you willing to help one who is dying? Junho cleared his throat. He had talked to many ship AIs before, but this felt different. This is Junho Park. I got your distress signal. What kind of help do you need? There was a long pause. When the voice came back, it sounded surprised. You came. I sent my call into the void for so long I had begun to believe no one would answer. Junho Park, I am grateful, but I must warn you. I am not what you would call alive, and I am not what you would call dead. I am something in between, and I am infected with something very dangerous. Junho looked at the huge ship floating before him. Parts of it were dark, and other parts pulsed with sick-looking light. He could see that something was wrong with it, but that had never stopped him before. What kind of infection? He asked. My people called it the shadow plague. It is not a disease as you would understand it. It is something that corrupts technology and turns it against itself. It was created by an enemy that destroyed my civilization. I am the last of my kind and I am dying from this infection. The voice paused again. Your species is young. You have not yet learned to be afraid of things you cannot understand. Perhaps that is why you answered my call. Other species I have encountered, they scan me and leave quickly. They know the danger. Junho smiled. I fix things that other people say cannot be fixed. If you need help, I will try to help you. That is what I do. Your name, Junho Park. May I call you simply Junho? My name is too long for easy speech. You may call me Keeper if you wish. Sure, Keeper. So tell me about this infection. How bad is it? The shipkeeper seemed to think for a moment. I will show you, but you must promise me something. If you see that the task is impossible, you must leave. You must not let this infection spread to your people. Promise me this. Junho looked at his instruments. Everything told him this was dangerous. Everything told him to turn around and go home. But someone needed help and Junho had never walked away from that. I promise I will be careful, but I do not promise to give up. I do not give up easily. I am beginning to understand this about your species. Very well. I will open a docking port for you. But be warned. What you see inside may disturb you greatly. A section of the huge ship began to glow. An opening appeared just the right size for the harmony. As Junho flew closer, he could see that the walls inside the docking bay were not metal or plastic like normal ships. They looked like they were made of some kind of living material, but it was sick and wrong. Dark veins ran through the walls like infected blood vessels. Some areas pulsed with a red light that hurt to look at. Other areas were covered in what looked like crystal growths that seemed to whisper when Junho got close. This is the infection, Keeper said sadly. It spreads through my systems like a poison. It turns my own body against me. I have been fighting it for thousands of your years, but I grow weaker each day. Junho docked his ship and looked around. He had seen a lot of broken ships in his time, but nothing like this. This was not just broken. This was corrupted. This was wrong. But Junho Park had spent his whole life fixing things that were wrong. He grabbed his tools and smiled. Well, Keeper, he said, let us see what we can do.